Littleton? Cool. All right, well, this is the 6 o'clock, December 1st meeting of the Littleton Planning Board, 6 o'clock. Our first agenda item is master plan discussion of 410 Great Road, Aquifer Water Resource District, sidewalk curb cut, special permit, residents at King Street Commons, board discussion and vote. So we'll start off with that. I don't know if everybody's seen the draft decision that Rick and Maren worked out. Questions, concerns, want to go over it? It's pretty much basically the same thing that we're using at 510 Great Road, right? 510, whatever that, whatever that place. 550, yeah. Whatever, 510, 550, whatever it takes. You pretty much drafted it as an extension of that, it looks like to me. Board have any questions or concerns about it?
Mark, I just want to say that I was not present at the 16th hearing. I have reviewed it on video on demand. That was quite a hearing you guys had. And so I would like to be able to vote on this matter.
Absolutely, Jeff. We covered a lot of ground, I thought, on that. I think Rick was very good about the due diligence that the Lapoli company put into the building and about what hopefully we can get out once we're done. I think everybody who spoke about the objective, repurposing the buildings, the issues that the buildings present. And I think that's why we're here with a draft decision before us. It's actually going to hopefully mirror what we're doing at 550. And do you have any questions or concerns, Jeff, since you weren't at the meeting?
Well, I don't have questions. I want to compliment Rick on his, as always, his presentation. I'm not, I would put it this way. I'm going to abstain in my vote. I don't necessarily support this particular proposal. However, I really would like, I respect Rick, Lapoli, etc. And I know their intentions are good. And I would like to work with everyone to make it the best it could be. I do think it's too big. I think if we didn't have the gun situation, this would not be on the table. I am out of step with people on the historic, and that's fine. But I do need to respect my own attitudes about that. So that's my view of it.
Okay. I hear where you're coming from. I think Rick was kind of honest with us when he said that he gave us a benchmark number. I think we're all are realistic in knowing that the number is going to probably float somewhere downward once everything's said and done. This is just an exercise to make sure that it's viable, that that the banks will be interested in it, and Mr. Lapoli will be interested in it. You said you gave us a number, but I don't think anybody believes that you're going to be able to shoehorn all of that in there anyway in the first place. But I think this is just a exercise to make sure that we're all going to work together to come up with something that's going to be really nice there. I think that's what this is. Well, really
and I understand and appreciate what I consider to be sort of urgency in this process, because they do want to go through with buying the building, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. That's my position. And I understand that the typical, inclusionary zoning, et cetera, will result, in added benefit for affordable units in the town. I have a little bit of a concern about the sewer situation. We've now sucked up 1,000 units for the sewer, and I just wonder how that's playing out. Will there be any sewer capacity left for anything else in town? It's neither here nor there. It's just a concern. And I don't know if we can answer that question at this time. I agree with Bartlett and Rick that there's a big grade issue with the site. And, you can take advantage of it to mitigate the height. You can put parking, etc. I agree with people who pointed out, to take a left-hand turn out of the upper exit is pretty much not possible under a lot of traffic conditions. And I think that the King Street exit will be used quite a bit for people exiting the property. Otherwise, I'm sorry I missed the meeting.
Well, all right. Thanks, Jeff. So we're going to move along with the decision. We've all
Sure.
seen it. Does anyone have any issues? I'll start with Bartlett. You've read now, do you want to go first, Anna? I don't care.
Okay, I have a couple of things. In the previous presentation, Rick said that there would be some 4 bedrooms, and I don't see them in this. And I would just sort of like to wonder where that allocation of unit counts came from.
I don't think he ever said 4 bedrooms. I think 3
No,
bedrooms.
there was I just looked at it. It had 4 bedrooms.
I don't have Rick, correct me if I'm wrong. You said the state says you have to have 3 bedrooms. 10% of it has to be 3 bedrooms. I think that's where we stopped at.
That's right. Yeah. And one of the discussions, Bartlett, was obviously, the conversation about having more housing opportunities, a wider variety of the housing bedroom types. And what we said was that we would make sure we would mirror what we did at 550 and propose 10% of the 3-bedroom units. Originally, if you remember, 550, we're originally only going to do 1 and 2 bedrooms. And after talking to Maren a little bit more about the inclusionary housing and some of the guidance that's coming from the state, we realized we really ought to be proposing 10% of 3-bedroom units.
Okay.
Carla, you said you read something or you saw something. What are you referencing?
I thought it was the letter that was their initial proposal. I can, and the other thing that I was sort of wondering about is several places in this document it says less than 60% AMI for the affordable. And I was wondering if that means that everybody will be at 60%, or can we ask for some people at some residences at 40% or 50%? I mean, can we specify that?
You're talking about the 10% affordability. I thought I saw 80%. To be honest with you. Yeah.
I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk or how much I'm allowed to talk.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was 80% AMI.
Yeah. So what's in the proposal? It's a breakdown. It's on page 9 of the draft decision. Is the breakdown of the units. It's 80% AMI for 10% of the unit stock. And what we tried to do was balance those so that it's an even distribution based on percentage of 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms. For example, we don't want to make all of the affordables 1 bedroom.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. I was just wondering if there's any way of including people at a lower level of AMI, or the percentage of the AMI than 80%.
I see. So can I answer that when we get to site plan?
Sure.
I think I understand your perspective and the point, and the goal of broadening the affordable housing. I think if we're too restrictive now, it will defeat the purpose that we need to achieve with the banks that we're talking about. But if it's okay, maybe we can revisit at the time of site plan.
Okay.
Delise, do you have any questions or concerns? Anna?
Sorry, let me unmute. No, I'll reserve a lot of that till the site plan.
Okay, Anna?
Thank you. Hi, Rick. So thank you very much for all of this work that you and Maren put into the decision. So I wanted to ask if under the description, we could just add the amount of acreage on there, because it doesn't have the I think it's 4.2 acres anywhere in the decision. I just think that's important to notify or to note it. And then the other question that I had is, on our plan, it shows the pocket park, and I don't see that anywhere in the determinations or the conditions. And so I wanted to ask the board whether or not that's something we should go ahead and put in there as a determination or as a condition, because I think it's really important to be able to reflect on what Rick came in and talked about last time with respect to the fact that we have a good amount of history there, Littleton history, and we want to be able to have a monument to be able to tell the story and celebrate that history. So I just think that it's an important piece to be able to add to the decision. What does everybody think?
I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. We talked about it. Rick says he's okay with it.
Yeah, it's actually something we're really excited about doing. I think it's going to help sort of distinguish this building from some of the other product that's going to be at 550. So we're happy to include it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other issues, or do you, is the board ready to take a vote on this?
Mark, you have someone from the public raising their hand.
Well,
Yeah, I
because-
would
yeah, we
note
can't-
that the board did close the public hearing, so it's not
Yeah.
up to the chair whether or not you care to take any testimony.
We did close the hearing. We are just actually voting the concerns. I don't care. Do you want to, since somebody is actually watching us? Sure, I don't have a problem with us. I see, we can't see anybody's hands. Yes, well, maybe it's down below. Participants, okay, let me see it that way.
Oh, yeah, just a minute.
What?
I should be able to unmute Miss Dave Bimder. Go ahead.
Dave, are you there? Hello? Guess you have to unmute yourself, Dave, or I don't think we can. We're having, did he unmute? Dave, are you there? Can you unmute yourself so we can hear what you have to say? Mr. Bender? No, guess not. Maren, can you do it? No. Nope. All right, I'm at a loss.
Yeah.
No, we can't do it. Amber, can you do it?
We gave him the option and he has not taken it.
Okay. All right, so then I guess maybe he doesn't want to say anything. So, all right, having, I guess we're going to move on. So, we have the conditions of approval with the two changes that we've instituted in them that Maren will make the corrections to. Without hearing any other issues there, I'd like to propose this to a vote. All those in favor of the master plan, special permit, Aquifer Water Resource District, sidewalk curb cut, special permit, signify by saying aye. I'll do it by roll call. Anna?
Aye.
Bartlett?
Aye.
Delisa?
Aye.
I am aye. And Jeff, you're going to abstain, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I get a vote of four with one abstention. Mara will make the corrections. And thank you, Rick, for again a great job. We look forward to seeing you sooner rather than later, I hope.
Me too.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys very much. Have a great night. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so now we have a 5:15 joint meeting with the Littleton Bicycle and Pedestrian, for the Littleton Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan.
Okay, yeah, so if you give us a few minutes to
Okay,
get Mara Holland promoted and David Laustenheiser.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind you that I'm going to be jumping off for a work meeting at 6:30. Okay.
okay. We appreciate your time, Anna.
And I'm going to be jumping off my phone, but I'll be watching it on my computer screen.
Okay. We'll be done before the Patriots game, right? You think?
That's the plan.
All right. So have you got everybody here?
Okay, hopefully Mara can.
I don't
Is
see
Mara
yeah,
co-host? Yes, she is. And David Laustenheiser. So I hope you remember Mara and David from MAPC. They've met with us a couple times when we first kicked off the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. They have a presentation ready for tonight that goes over the existing conditions, the draft existing conditions that they found for the master plan, for the bicycle and pedestrian plan, and initial survey results. I believe that representatives from BPAC and Transportation Advisory Council are here. We've also invited select boards. I see, oh good, I do see at least 2 select board members. It's great, 3 select board members. So I believe they are in session as well. I believe BPAC is in session, nod heads, and is TAC also in session? Question, probably not, okay. But well, welcome everybody.
Yes, thank you all for coming. Are we ready? Maren and Amber?
Yeah.
All right, so do you want to start with your presentation? Who's leading off?
Sure, I can get started. Thank you all for having us here tonight. We appreciate the time to share the plan with you. We'll do our best to get done before the Patriots game. We don't have too many slides, so hopefully this will go quickly, but happy to hear any thoughts any of you have. I'm going to just share my screen quickly. Great, I'll assume all of you can see this as it's loading. Great. So we're here to talk to you today about the Littleton Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan that we are working on with the town of Littleton. As an introduction, today we're going to spend a little bit of time presenting some draft findings. We're still pretty early in the project, but we have some good information to share with you today. We did a site visit earlier this year in the town. We have done some existing conditions research to share some of those findings with all of you. We also are in the process of doing a community survey, which we're closing, I believe, in about a week. We have over 600 responses, I believe about 640 right now. So we've received a really wonderful response from the town of Littleton. I think over 95% of the folks that have responded are Littleton residents. So really great response from folks in the town. The project team, we've been working with the town of Littleton as well as the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Council. And my name is Mara Holland. I'm a transportation planner at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, also known as MAPC. And David Laustenheiser is with me as well. He's a senior transportation planner with us at MAPC. As an overview, I mean, we've seen that the town has many relevant boards and committees. We're glad to see that many of you are here today representing some of the different committees that we would love to get feedback from. For those committees that aren't represented here tonight, we would love to meet with those folks as part of this process as we go forward. The proposed plan that we will put together will show a comprehensive transportation network that will include a variety of different types of facilities, including pathways, trails, bike lanes, sidewalks, multi-use trails, things like that, to make sure that there's good connections, but also a variety that meet the character of the town. The plan will also propose improvements for walking, biking, and rolling. And when we say rolling, we mean other types of personal wheeled mobility besides bicycling, such as wheelchairs, walkers, scooters, mopeds, skateboards, and more, as we know that there's a variety of ways that people get around. We also know there's a lot happening in Littleton right now, as I'm sure you all just discussed in your planning board meeting, that there's new zoning in the Littleton Common requiring 10-foot sidewalks. There's 3 pretty significant developments happening around Littleton Common that are a mix of residential and commercial that we definitely want to think about when we're proposing these bike and pedestrian connections in and throughout the town. And there's also the recent MBTA communities legislation that requires new multi-unit housing near the MBTA station. So the blue dot down here is showing where your MBTA station is, and then some of the new development that's coming soon to the town around the common. So we also looked at your road classification to look at which roads are town-owned and which ones are state-owned. The good news is that over 70% of Littleton's towns are town-controlled, meaning that you have a lot of opportunity to make changes within the town for walking and biking. There are a few major highways that cut through Littleton, including 495, Route 2, 119, also known as Great Road, and 2A, King Street / Ayer Road as well. So these are state roads that do cut through the town, but there's still a lot of opportunity for town improvements to a lot of the other streets. Littleton also has many foot trails. You can see in the purple there is highlighting the foot trails that exist within and around the town. However, there's not a lot of opportunity to connect them through walking and biking currently. And one thing we heard in the survey was that there's a lot of interest for folks to do longer walks that connect some of these really great spaces that you have within the town. Also noting that the town is close to the newly extended Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which is a really wonderful asset in the region. This map is a little bit of a repeat from the last one. You can see all the orange is the foot trails that exist throughout the town and close by as well. You can also see in blue, which is a painted bike lane in Littleton's town common that you currently have. So not a whole lot of bike infrastructure right now, but a lot of really great assets in foot trails and walking in the town. This is showing existing sidewalks in the town. There's a number of existing sidewalks on some of the key connector streets through the middle of the town that help connect especially some of the local schools and some of the local higher density residential areas as well, including King Street, Goldsmith Street, Foster Street, Taylor Street. So those are some pretty great assets currently on some of the streets that you have. We also pulled out some information about crashes. This one here is bike and pedestrian crashes that have happened in the last 3 years in the town. So there have been 8 crashes, mainly on these main roads that are state owned. So on Great Road, on 2A, that have occurred, and then there's one that's on, I believe that's Russell Street behind the middle school. There was one fatal crash that occurred of a pedestrian on a road on the western side of Littleton as well. So those are definitely areas that we're going to want to look at to think about bike and pedestrian improvements to make sure that those specific areas are addressed. And here I want to sort of contrast that with the amount of vehicle crashes that have occurred in the last couple years in the town. As you can see, there's been a really high number of vehicle crashes. A lot of them are property damage only, so just like cars crashing or cars crashing into something. There's been a number of the pink dots are non-fatal injuries, so someone has gotten hurt in one of the crashes. And then you also have 4 fatal injuries that have occurred because of vehicle crashes within the town. And so many of these crashes have occurred again on these state numbered routes that are a little bit wider, that are seeing a lot of through traffic, a lot of truck traffic on these. But what we can pull out from this map here is that a lot of these major connector streets are not safe. And if they're not safe for vehicles, they're also not safe for people biking and walking. So we definitely want to think about where these crashes are occurring, and if the improvements that we can provide or that we can suggest can also provide some improvements for road safety as well. So now I'll jump into some of the survey results that we've received. As I mentioned, we have over 600 survey responses, which has been really great to hear from a lot of the town residents about what they're interested in bike and pedestrian improvements and kind of how they're currently using the space. So this first question, do you walk, bike, or roll in Littleton now? The vast majority of people said yes, that they walk. There's also a lot of people that say they bike around the town. And folks also saying no, but they would like to if it were easier, safer, or more convenient. So definitely something that, you know, we're trying to do with this plan. This next question, which of these would encourage you to walk, bike, or roll more in Littleton? The #1 response was more connected multi-use trails and sidewalks. #2 was better maintained sidewalks, crosswalks, bike lanes, other infrastructure. #3 was walking, biking, rolling feels safe. And so a lot of these have to do with infrastructure. A close #4 was also that paths and trails travel through enjoyable areas to walk, bike, and roll. So it's not just a path that's on a side of a major road, but it's also something that they can enjoy that's maybe through a natural area or some place that they might be able to stop and get something to eat or something like that that might be enjoyable part of the journey. Next question, how would you like to use Littleton's current and future trails? #1 response by a lot was walking. There's a lot of folks interested in the town and having better walking facilities and better places to walk. #2, cycling for recreation or transportation. #3, exploring nature. There's a lot of really wonderful natural assets within the town that I think a lot of people want to be able to access more from a walking and biking and rolling perspective. Next question, to what places would you and your family walk, bike, or roll if you felt safe doing so? #1 was parks, including natural areas, lakes, and conservation lands. #2, around my local neighborhood. So really some more local interest in sort of just biking around where they live. #3, Littleton Common area, including the library and town hall. We also saw a grocery center, shopping center, grocery stores, other food stores, restaurants, bars, movie theaters. So people want to get around both for utility to get to places, but also for recreation and to get to places that they enjoy going as well. I'll hand it off to David to talk a little bit about some of the different types of facilities that we may be thinking about during this plan.
Yeah, thanks, Mara. I met some of you on the walking or the biking tour and bus tour back in August, and thanks for having us back to talk more about the plan. I think one of our goals with the plan is to create a connected network of trails, or recommend a connected network of trails, greenways, sidewalks. As shown in the maps of the sidewalk inventory and of the trail inventory, there's a lot of open space in Littleton in separate parcels, which is fantastic, but they're not as well connected in between on the roadways with safe bike and walk facilities necessarily. So part of the plan is to really to make recommendations for how to create a connected network so people can be on a trail system of some sort, whether it's a paved wide trail that's bikeable, whether it's a narrow sort of natural surface foot trail, hiking trail, walking trail, whatever you want to call it. But also, and the other piece is sort of what we call the regional greenway network. Some of you are familiar with that on this call, the landline greenway network, which is basically the regional corridors that we're identifying as ways to connect throughout the region. And the goal for those regional corridors are to have, specific or general design criteria, which I can explain in this slide. If it's on the roadway, the ideal is the first sort of the top left image is this pretty standard bike lane and sidewalk, which is good. Even better is protecting the bike lane from traffic, where space allows. And of course, a sidewalk here, this is a nice brick sidewalk with trees and then sort of the third version, which is this project's in construction, but it's a bike lane that's not protected by flex posts, but actually protected by by curb separation. So you have the sidewalk and the bike, the one-way bike path at the sidewalk level. So that's sort of the fully constructed version of that. Whereas the flex post, which is the middle photo, would be more of an interim solution, until something more that would do more of a fold-up construction could do there. When you're looking off the roadway or off the roadway right-of-way, obviously, and when I talk about greenway corridors, I'm talking about corridors that have a hard surface that is useful or can be used by people on bicycles or wheelchairs, not just a hiking trail. But the bottom photo on the left is a surface that pretty standard sort of gravelly surface that it's not really made to accessible standards, but it could be. So looking at places like that, like a wide sort of Jeep trail, cart path type of trail that we could maybe add an additional stone dust surface to make that more accessible. There's a narrow sidewalk that could be widened to in the bottom middle to like the image on the right side, which is an example in Cambridge of how, this is a good example on the right. That roadway 5 years ago was 4 lanes wide. And there was a very narrow, basically asphalt path, about half that width there. And what they decided to do was to narrow that to 2 lanes and add some trees and grass, and then create a nice shared use path, 10, 12 foot wide path that people can walk, run, bike, wheelchair, and so forth on that. So, with that, by not only narrowing the street, it makes it easier to cross, but creating a really nice, attractive facility to use. So those are some of the types of facilities that we would consider. Maybe the next slide, Laura. Is there another? Yeah, it's again more on the types of interventions and different programs. Obviously, the Safe Routes to School is more of a funding program. There's opportunities for, anytime a road is resurfaced for any reason, that's an opportunity. Like in the photo in this image, can you narrow the travel lane to provide more of a shoulder for walking and biking? Probably in this roadway, it's probably as narrow as it could be. But looking at ways in any paving project to provide better, particularly bike lanes and that sort of thing, or places for people to walk. Certainly intersection improvements. We talked about road diets in the previous slide of reducing travel lanes for safety, and then some of the amenities. Next. So I wanted to go back before we go to the next steps. I guess, Mara, I wanted to talk about the sort of the regional network a little bit. If we go back to that map, back a couple slides. Keep going. This one, yeah. So, yeah, that one. One of the goals is thinking about how we can better connect. Like we said, we have open spaces in different places. This is not complete open space data. We did have received additional data from the town that we have not yet incorporated here. So there are more trails that are shown. But some of the key destinations, they're not shown on this particular map, but we do have the T station, the high school over here, schools over here, and so forth. And of course, the Littleton Common area. So looking at how can we connect this sort of triangle here in particular, certainly across town as well, but sort of the key station, high school, downtown core area, and how can we create facilities to do that and create corridors? Can we build some sort of trail that would connect them all, or the other challenge is that the roadways are quite narrow and limited in ability to do that. There is a shared use path project here going to the south, but going to the north. So just some of the things that we're thinking about are, for example, can we better connect through the schools and through the town facilities here with a path that would continue all the way through there? There's sort of one now. In an ideal world, 119, 117, is 119, over to the point, that's by foot or bike is quite uncomfortable. I hate to use the word dangerous, but you have off ramps on both sides of the street, a sidewalk, I think, on one side, and you have no space to bike. So it's in fast moving traffic. So it's a pretty uncomfortable place to be. In an ideal world, you have a nice bridge between the point right here and the new development that's happening at this location. That would be nice. So something to think about. It would not be cheap though. The other ideas that we were thinking about, or can you build a trail, for example, along 495, through this area, through redevelopment, of a site here behind senior housing, that sort of thing, and maybe through conservation land to connect to downtown. So that's the type of thinking that we're looking at is are there other ways to create a trail network besides using the roadways, which may have, really limited space to create those desired connections from the station and the high school and beyond. So let's, go back to the end and we can go with questions.
Great, thanks, David. So as far as next steps for the plan, we are going to continue to develop the plan while looking at more existing conditions and really diving into the survey results more in depth. The survey will close in about a week, I think just a little over a week. So if you know of anyone who hasn't responded who would like to, now is the time to send them that link and send them to the website to fill that out. We're planning to continue to meet with town committees. We're hoping to have a public meeting in February, having a draft plan sent to the town in April, have another public meeting about some semi-final draft recommendations in May, and then the final plan will be sent to the town in June. Within that time frame, I think there's some options for additional community engagement, which may include focus groups, presentations to committees and civic organizations, things like that for folks that may be interested in talking to us more one-on-one about some of the either challenges within the town or some of the specific thoughts that they might have that we should include in our final recommendations. And just to reiterate I'll stop sharing here. Just to reiterate what David said. So in addition to the network plan that we're going to put together, we're also thinking about some policy and program recommendations as support aspects to this program, to this plan as well, that we'll also include in this plan as well. So that concludes our presentation, and happy to open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you. I guess I'll probably start with the advisory group itself. Do you have any questions or concerns or comments for the MAPC at this time? Anybody?
Yep, just second. I'll start with Gary.
Well, I'm going to let Michael go first since he's the BPAC. So I'll defer to Michael first.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I was gonna let you go first because you put your hand up first. But no, I just had one minor question. I'm looking at the map of bike and pedestrian crashes. And the two blue dots where it says other non-fatal, do we know any more details about that, or is it just the data's missing?
That's a good question. We received data from the Littleton Police Department, and a lot of crash data is really not specific. It can be not specific about what happened. It cannot be specific about the location. So crash data in general is hard to get more details on. And so I think they just didn't have enough information about those two locations to be able to say kind of who it was and what happened.
Okay.
Gary?
Okay, great. Thank you, David and Mara. I think it's great that this has been talked about for many years to have a bicycle pedestrian master plan. So I'm very happy that this is being worked on. So I'm speaking both as an interested resident, 15 Mill Road, Littleton, but also past TAC chairman and also the executive chair of the Neshoba Regional Greenways, which is what David referred to recent as a regional group that is trying to advocate for connecting these routes within these towns to a broader network of right now 14 communities from 128 out to as far as Ayer and Devons. And so one ask I had is when you're meeting with some of the other boards and communities, if it's okay with the planning board, I'm an advocacy group. I'm not filling a town role when I'm serving as Neshoba Regional Greenways, but if it's okay with the planning board, if it would be okay if they met with me further as well regarding how to tie some ideas that we have about tying this into the network, I'd appreciate it. And then there was a question for David and Mara is to, you're going to be making some recommendations, I imagine, for like, where do we prioritize? Like, what would be like some of the biggest bang for the buck, I assume, for connecting where some key connection points are? What kind of criteria we'll be using? Will you be coming up with like an objective criteria with a weighting or something like that to determine what is going to be like where we should start with?
I would note in each community, we do plans like this in a number of communities, and there's so much that needs to be done that it'll take 50 years at the current rate to do that. So I think one of the criteria will be speed. What can be done with simple striping, as I mentioned. That's lower cost than any other sort of opportunity. Striping, pavement markings, crosswalks. That would include accessible ramps and that sort of thing as well. Concrete, which is a little more expensive, but what can be done with that? What can be done through development? I mentioned there's a large parcel right there adjacent to the station, which I think there's interest in that, as I understand, as an example of a parcel that could be developed, and if and when it is that we exact, I mentioned a potential trail through there, and I apologize, we've got people vacuuming here right now. That's what happens when you're in the office late. That's a challenge in terms of well, not a challenge, but an opportunity with development to exact some of the ideas in the plan. So we can put the far out ideas or the more expensive ideas in the plan, but if we have those in the plan, then we can probably exact that from the developers if it's already in the plan.
I'll also add to David's point of, some of these things are opportunistic. I mean, if there's a road that's going to be resurfaced as part of the road resurfacing plan in the near future, like that's an opportunity to think about bike and pedestrian facilities. I think there's funding that's coming from the state and federal government that may be an opportunity. There's also shared streets and spaces funding that allows for really quick build interventions. So I think there's a variety of opportunities to think about different projects and how we can get them done in a faster timeline, but also think about key connections that need to happen. So it's not quite as straightforward as like, this is the best one to do next, but I think we can definitely note those opportunities and locations where we think are a high priority for the town.
Yeah, and I believe that a key product out of this is going to be like a pecking order, knowing that it's not just like Michael's opinion or my opinion or something like that. It's kind of objectively developed, that we can go to the select board and go to the DPW and say, well, this is what came out of this based upon the objectives and the recommendations that people said that were priorities, and other key features, like there's sidewalks here and here, but there's not one there between it, and it would help connect to the schools or other types of things. So I would encourage you to deliver as a product a prioritization scheme, maybe not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but bands of top or medium priorities or something like that, and rationale as to how they came up with it. And I think objective rationales such as connecting to key features, the easy button, tying into what people's objectives were. I think those would be good things to use. I'm sure you have done this before, but I think to me, that's going to be the biggest legacy piece out of this, is going to be that you guys did the legwork, and we're going to have like a nice shopping list coming out of this.
That's good. Nope, I'm done with that.
Just a few more points, then I'll yield the floor. The point about restriping and things, I did have the opportunity to meet with Stephen Yanui about a month or two ago. Michael and I met with them, and I was explaining what the NRG is trying to do. And I brought up the point that when you are paving, to kind of keep these points in perspective, because there was a lot of paving work done this year. And I think we missed the window to try to influence that before some of the striping got done. But those who are on here that have some engagement with Stephen, and he was supportive of what we were talking about. Like I said, I think I just missed the window for this year, but maybe that's something you guys can keep in mind when you're working with Stephen on the priorities for the following year. I know he kind of does what he needs to do when he has to do paving, but ask those questions about whether that's an opportunity. Is it tying into an area that's a key road feature? Because I think we kind of lost that opportunity this year in some roads like Neshoba Road and some other ones that maybe would have been good to do things a little bit differently, or just at least discuss it. And I think the other thing is the sidewalks. That map that showed the sidewalks, I think it connected the main ones that were on the main road, but there are plenty of other sidewalks besides that. And I think it would be good to have a plate that would show all the sidewalks in town. Okay, there aren't that many, and it'd be good to show them all so that you could then clearly indicate where the gaps might be. So I think I'll yield the floor. But if anybody else has any, but I just want to ask Mark or the planning board or select board, are you guys okay with me meeting them further regarding the NRG? Would that be okay?
I think we're good with that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll start, I guess. Starting with planning board, I think we have to be a little more cognizant of the developments that are coming before us. In the old days, we used to, Maren will remember this, we used to have funds set aside. People weren't putting sidewalks in to build sidewalks where they made sense and things like that. Maybe we should start doing that again, trying to put a bank account together to have some money to start doing some of the trails and sidewalks or connectivity that we're talking about here. I do agree that the easiest, most bang for your buck probably is where we should start, so we can get some momentum for this. I think it's a great idea that everybody in the town really wants to get outside to either walking or biking, and the more connectivity that makes it enjoyable to go from one area of the town to the next is probably key to this being successful. And I think as I said, starting with the planning board, we should at least, when we have projects before us, make sure that if there's a connectivity component that we can utilize as it's redeveloped, we should be looking at that forward. I know we did do that when we did the Amazon. I know there was talk about connecting to if they get the sidewalk squared away, and I think the state's working on that down Foster Street, that there is a money set aside in means to connect the sidewalks from Amazon all the way down to the train station. And if we could keep going with that, that would be a definite plus as well. So, but I do agree, a map showing what we have and what's the easiest to make connectivity, not for the next 50 years, but for the foreseeable future is probably, would probably be a great place to start. Anyone else on the board want to weigh in on this? Delisa?
No, I agree with what you said. I think, we have already started discussing this with the Lapoli developments and how it's going to impact the common area. So I think we do have a great opportunity there to take all of this into consideration. But I do think I agree also with looking at what roads are going to be paved. I mean, I live on Spectacle Pond, which was just paved maybe 4 months ago. And it would have been great to have incorporated some of this into Spectacle Pond at that time, but hindsight's 2020.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone from the select board want to weigh in?
We still have some hands raised.
Okay.
George Sanders.
George, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, George.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few concerns with regards to the impact for the town. When we started talking about Great Road and we started talking about King Street here, what is the involvement to the extent as to you're going to be putting in town sewer here, which means they're going to be putting pipe into the roadway out there, which means that they're going to, I guess, temporary patch as they go along. And I would think that they're going to resurface a lot of the roadway there at that time, which means that they're going to have to get permission from the DOT, the Mass DOT, to dig in the state highway in the first place. So I think that it would be good for this pedestrian bike committee to chime in with the Mass DOT with regards to what is on the horizon here with regards to the common area. I understand there's other areas, and I understand that we have other highways that are going through the town of Littleton here. For instance, we got this big mall over there at the point, and once things start to develop here on King Street and on Great Road here, naturally, people like, even now, you see some people walking across to go over to the point there. I think that they should zoom in on the fact of looking at the state with regard to replacing the bridge over 495. They did a bomb-up job on putting that connector in there where they taking a 2-lane highway, put it into a 3-lane, and then when you get on either side of the bridge there, it goes into 5 lanes. So you got to squeeze in that's coming eastbound on the bridge there. So it's very dangerous there with that bridge for anybody, especially if a bicycle. And I know a gentleman there, he's always going across over to the market basket over there, riding his bike and so forth. And I just think that we need to zero in on, long-term plan here. I would say within 8 to 10 years here, what Littleton is going to look like. And I think that good effort should be put forth into seeing that, we got to get the blessing from the state to start doing anything to these highways. And that's my concern. And I like to see people be able to cross these streets and live a day after it, because we know that it is getting dangerous out there now. When we just had someone there in Acton to get damaged real bad there, which was a friend that plays sports with my son. And it's just something that I wrote a letter to Mr. Eldred and Mr. Jim Asirio and asked them to go to the DOT based on the, I guess, the first developer that we'll have in the common area will be Northern Bank there. And I think that what they're going to put in there, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to want to cross over from one side of 119 there. And I think that we need to put a light in, a crosswalk there that says stop and let the people get across the highway. So I'm all for what they're doing, but at the same token, I think that we need to reach out a little bit further and see what we can get the feds to do in terms of putting this a bridge in there, making a connection across over there. Because you well know when the interstate came in, they just went in and they just thought that was the greatest thing that was ever going to happen in this country, was the interstate. And they just bowled right through cities and towns, knocking out places, displacement and everything else. And there is funds now that is in the federal government system to try to offset some of the displacement that's taken place with the interstate highways that came through. So I see 495 as one of them, that bridge needs to be replaced, and we should try to make an effort to go after the federal government to try to get some of that fund to replace that bridge along with the Mass DOT. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, George.
Nicholas Bates House.
Thank you, Maren. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Nicholas Bates House, 28 Birch Road. I'm also on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Mara, David, thank you so much for putting this information together. It's really nice to see it all in one place. Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee has been working for a bunch of years with bits and pieces of this information. I have a couple of thoughts on additional resources that we probably want to tie this into. One is a couple of years ago, state of Massachusetts put out a sidewalk demand map that just looked at where there's a lot of pedestrian demand and looked at where there are no sidewalks on one side, sidewalk on two sides, particularly around state roads. Littleton, of course, was all in high demand, low availability. And then with respect to sidewalks themselves, there are a lot of sidewalks in town that are not really up to code, particularly with respect to accessibility. And having an expansive map of sidewalks in town, not just with respect to where are there sidewalks, where they're not sidewalks, but where are those sidewalks kind of up to code, particularly with respect to accessibility and separation from the street, would also be really helpful. And then there is the Littleton Common revitalization and form-based code, and ensuring that as we kind of pursue that vision for revitalizing Littleton Common, incorporating bicycle and pedestrian and rolling accessibility into that plan and into that vision would be a great thing. And then I think the last comment that I had was, Mara, you called out that we can create a great wish list, and there will be a lot of things on there that'll be really expensive, and there are a bunch of different kinds of resources available. That I think paints a good vision for what this master plan can aspire to be, which is not just a vision for where the town can go with respect to accessibility and walkability and bikeability, but also the resources that are available to assist us in achieving that vision or making progress towards that vision. And then Planning Board, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee can do the work to line up what are what is the vision, what are the projects, what are the resources available, and when are they available in order to help us make that kind of incremental progress towards that ultimate vision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Cavallo.
Hi, Jerry Cavallo, 8 Uplands Road. Two observations. First, I think it's very encouraging. I'm a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee that the chairman of the planning board has a picture of a couple of gentlemen utilizing a crosswalk behind him. The second point is that, David, you had mentioned that in August when we took that road, you noticed how congested the roads were. But you also mentioned there might, about a path along Route 495. And I was wondering if you meant on state road, on town property, on state property or town property, and has this ever been done before in Massachusetts in your experience?
Has what been done?
Creating a path, perhaps, to get us off the roads and competing with the cars. Yeah. You mentioned that maybe a path along 495. Would that be on state property, on town property? And have you ever recommended that to a town in the past and they've actually been able to do that?
Well, I mean, there are projects there are projects that use varying bits of land. I'm just thinking there's a project in Boston that will be used MBTA land, Arboretum land to connect Rosendale with the station and with, further for points north. But it's something we need to scope to see, what are it would be a number of different parcels, and the parcels are some in private, some are public, and looking at constructability issues, wetlands, other things that might get in the way. It's not easy, but if it were to be built, you'd have to create that long vision to do that. It could be a really nice opportunity. So it's something we have to dig in deeper about. I've looked at the parcels and the aerials, and looked at a potentially path could be fit through there. But as you said, there's different property issues, and they'd have to be examined more closely and work with the owners if they would be willing or not. So.
Right. Well, I was kind of thinking like 495 and Route 2, they have rights of way, and they're all one person that has them. Is there ever a way that we could get a bikeway along a state right of way, like the side of Route 2 or 495, that would get us from one end of the town to the other?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that MassDOT would build it, but you can go through the TIP funding process to do the design and have it funded through state funds. The one specific area I'm interested in discussing or examining further, as I mentioned, was the large vacant piece next to the station, just north or east of the station. That could go through that development. There's a life care facility with a large piece of property. Maybe there's an opportunity to use some of their land. I don't know. The people are there. You guys do, but there's space to do that. And then you can get up to Harwood Road, and then there's a conservation land, town conservation land. Maybe you can use some or all of that, or parts of the state. Again, the state frontage, interstate highway frontage. So, those are just some of the ideas I'm thinking that to do a deeper dive on whether that could be feasible, as a way to bypass. Sorry, I don't know the streets here, Foster Street, because of its limited right of way. The other way to get to the station is through that development across the street from the station and through the town forest. And I know there's a new trail that's been built there, but it's not an accessible trail. It's more of a natural surface trail. So.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That's something I think we should look into, because our roads are pretty crowded right now with cars, and there's no getting around it. If you take road space for bicycles, it'll be less for cars.
I would schedule a meeting with the Bike Ped Committee or interested people to have that separate discussion about some of those opportunities and look further into getting your knowledge on what could be potential there. So,
copy. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. Good eyes, by the way. I can't believe you could make that out in the back of that picture behind me.
And Gary Wilson.
What?
You said Gary Wilson is next.
Oh, good. Gary.
Hey, good evening. Gary Wilson, Vice Chair of the Select Board. I absolutely thank you. This is a fascinating and great presentation. I think that, looking at some of the stuff, I had no idea, the safety, some of the safety issues that we have. Looking at that bubble chart is kind of terrifying. but absolutely, safety in some of those areas where we're seeing this should be a high priority, and then continuing to have any developments that are built to really work with the planning board on getting these sidewalks built in these communities that are popping up. Not only for the beautification, but it builds a sense of community as well, the more that we can connect these. So I think we also have to be mindful that all of these sidewalks at the end of the day are being maintained and snow removal from our DPW. So that's something that we always need to consider unless we grow and we develop a different plan of different communities taking care of that themselves. I did want to mention Mr. DeCoste, select board member, is actually on his phone, but he can't unmute. So he did give me a question kind of towards Dave regarding station connectivity. As you were on the landline initiative, can you offer insight into the town using the gas pipeline that travels along the Route 2 westbound corridor, at least from Foster Street to Newtown Road? This would bode well towards connecting Acton somewhere along the Freeman Trail. So just a comment and a question, if you had any insight into that being a possibility. Kind of runs right out on the Grimes Lane, right at the station, that pipeline.
Okay. No, I don't have insight. We have to look at it and see,
Yeah.
but
The travelable, they do
it's
maintain it, obviously. As a kid, I used to four-wheel up through there, so I know that there's definitely a trail, and it does go all the way to Boxborough and beyond. So I was just curious if those type of pathways are being utilized, the gas pipelines.
yeah, it's often a challenge to work with utilities. I mean, everyone accepts informal use, unofficial, we're looking the other way use, but once we start to normalize it, then they get skittish. But maybe that I don't know. But yes, let's look into that and see if that's an opportunity.
Thank you.
Mark Rombacher.
Hi, Mark Grombacher, also a member of the select board. I wanted to echo some of the things that Jerry said about, the off-road connectivity from the train station to Harwood and so forth. Another example where that could come into play is going from White Street through Conant Park up to Russell Street and the town offices. I also wanted to kind of get on board with what Gary LaCroix said, and with the inter-town connectivity. But I am wondering how we prioritize things like connections between the surrounding towns, which are more of a through commuter bike system or something, versus what we would do for our local residents, where, something more like the path from the commuter rail to the point, for example, would be more of a local thing, whereas, striping Harwood to go from through Littleton to Acton and Harvard is more of a regional solution. So we have to weigh those solutions and how we're going to prioritize the two of them. Some of them seem like they would be simpler and cheaper, but not necessarily, and be good for the region, but not necessarily benefiting as many of our residents. So.
Yeah, Gary LaCroix.
Sure. So I think I'd like to answer a couple of questions that they've all been brought up regarding the greenways and the landline initiative. Gary, I can either reach out to Chuck or because he's mentioned that before about that utility route, and if he can, I can try to connect with him about what specifically that route would look like, because we do have a proposed route plan within Littleton as to what we want to connect to, that I think both accomplishes also. So I'm always curious about other ideas, right? So I'll take any feedback or suggestions that Chuck has, or some ideas that we want to explore, and I'll reach out to him separately about what that might look like. And then regarding Mark's comment, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. The route that we looked at developing in Littleton was both connecting to the things that people want to connect to in Littleton, but then also, where possible, serendipitously, also being routes that would tie into neighboring communities. So yeah, there'll be some clutches that, Harwood Street is a great example. It runs along the spine of the town, so it's a great road that connects from Acton eventually to Ayer or Harvard. But it also, you need to get people from one part of the town to the other too. So if they're going to get from the train station, they got to go down Harwood to get to those other things in town. So I see that we don't want to create a spider web, but we want to create the best routes that would get someone from both A to B in town, as well as, and say, hey, this is also gets you to the neighborhood towns. And I'm overdue probably in briefing back the select board. It's been over a year since the last time I spoke and we got support for the grant. But it was like a year and a half ago. So that's probably something I should do in the new calendar year, is to get with both the planning board and the select board, and just everybody know where that stands right now and what other help I might need to move this forward.
Okay, it looks like Mark Romacher again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to add to the gas right away, there's also the AT&T right away that I think goes from Foster Street over to Harwood that we should be looking at too. It's not the same pathway, but it's something else we should consider if we're looking at right of ways on utilities. So thank you.
So I can't tell. Yes, Jerry Cavallo. I think, where did you go? Oh, you good?
I just left my hand up. Sorry, I'm just taking it down.
Okay. I don't see any other hands raised at the moment. So I would just circle back to Mara and to David, if there are any other specific questions you had for the group, or
I don't think I do. I think this is a good discussion to hear a little bit more about, both your reactions to some of the information that we put forward and some of your thoughts around priorities. I think there's, a number of different things we could sort of focus on within the plan. Financial resources, the routes specifically, the political wills, the policies, the programs. Like, we can definitely have a selection of, different supporting ways to have better biking and walking infrastructure in the town. If there are specific things you think we should focus on more, such as like funding is a really big challenge, we can definitely hone in on that a little bit more. So if there are specific areas you'd like us to spend a little bit more time on, we're happy to do that. Or, really just think about all of these broadly as well. I think the idea of a criteria is a good one to think about. David and I will have to talk about that a little bit and think about what that criteria might be. And if you all have specific thoughts on how you would want to prioritize those projects, obviously we saw safety is definitely, roadway safety is a very big challenge. Happy to have separate conversations with folks, or happy to have anyone send us emails as well with additional thoughts regarding that, or any other pieces related to the plan.
Yep, and I'm happy to help facilitate any communication. Call me, email me. We'll get you to Mara and David.
I have just one more comment. I think probably the train station is going to be the focus that we're going to be working on right now between the state, getting a zoning amendment there. Any work that you could do within the next couple of months on how we can make the train station more pedestrian, bike friendly probably would be great, since we're going to be dealing with the consultants that we've hired and the state on that, with really, especially looking into, as Jerry said, maybe possibly going on outside the fence and coming up 495 to try to get to the common, or what other avenues we can use. But as we roll out the train station, it would make more sense so that we don't miss an opportunity to do something while we're redoing the roads and things like that. So maybe give us some, whatever you can get us for that area might be the best place to start.
I'm thinking of the Littleton Triangle here, which is the high school, the station, and then the center, which also includes the Russell Street middle school as part of that. So it's really and the point. Those are kind of what I consider probably the key destinations, at least, or the highest priority. Does that make sense?
That would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you. This was a great kickoff meeting for us, and we look forward to speaking with everybody as we move further along, especially I'm sure the selectmen and the planning board will be anxious to see what comes of this and what we can do to help. I think that's about it. I thank everyone for coming. Unless anyone has anything else, I don't see any reason we shouldn't be adjourning. Anyone else? We're all good? I think we're good. Thank you all for coming. Go Pats. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Our planning board meeting is adjourn our planning board meeting.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Jeff said so. Jeff's nodding. Okay, we're out. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everybody. Mark, George, thank you as always.